This is Bobby Rimmer's main event boxing show in association with Premier Sports. Okay, good evening everyone. Tonight we've got a bit of a mixed bag of a show tonight. We've got Matthew Hatton in. He needs no introduction, Matthew. And we've got Mike Hayton, one of the leading hand surgeons in Manchester. And he's going to tell us all about the injuries to boxers' hands and how we can stop it and how we can prevent it and kind of, you know, give us an insight to something that we don't really see often. Matthew's not been on the show before, neither has Mike, so Matthew's going to introduce himself and tell us about his career so far and what he's going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, obviously I'm in training for my next fight at the minute, which is at the Sheffield Arena on the 17th of March against Kell Brook. This, you know, not a lot of people know this will be my 50th contest coming up, so
it's amazing, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, I've racked.
Where's all them years gone, Matt?
I know, I'm trying. lot of fights, so like I say, I've been racking them up over the last few years. You know, I've had, you know, I've achieved good things in my career so far. I was the undefeated European champion. I challenged Saul Alvarez, moved up away from light middleweight, fought for WBC world title. So, you know, even though I've had a lot of fights and a lot of experiences, you know, I feel as if I'm getting better with age. You know, I'm in training, looking forward to the big challenge coming up against Kell Brook. So, even though I've had a lot of fights, I do still believe that the best years ahead of me. I hope so, anyway.
Like a fine wine, Matt.
That's the one, mate.
That's the one. That's the one. Obviously, do you see this as your biggest fight, Matt?
I think your next fight is always your biggest fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a big night when I went over to LA and fought for the world title against Alvarez, you know, moved up a weight division.
Yeah.
But, you know, even though I've achieved good things in my career so far, you know, it's still a burning ambition of mine to become a world champion. I got the opportunity to face Alvarez at light middleweight, which is a weight I'd never really boxed at. But sometimes in boxing in life, you get opportunities and chances and you just can't turn them down. So, you know, I'm looking forward to that. You know, Kell Brook's highly ranked in all the governing bodies now, as I am myself. I'm in top 10 in quite a few of the world bodies, so I think the winner of this fight will get a world title, and that's me ambition to get another world title challenge at welterweight.
I mean, you know, people say, oh, you're going to fight him in his own backyard in Sheffield and stuff like that, but you've been to Mexico, haven't you? And you've fought the Mexicans over there, haven't you? That's
right, yeah. You know, it was crazy really when I boxed over there, boxed Alvarez. You know what the Mexican people like, they're absolutely crazy for the boxing. It was like fighting a rock star really, you know, the amount of support he has. It was fantastic really, but it's not something that's ever bothered me really, going into the Lion's Den or fighting away from home. I think at heart I'm quite a stubborn person really, and something in me when I'm going to the ring and they're shouting all sorts and they're saying, you know, shouting and baying for your blood time. Part of me enjoys it in a silly sort of way. So, you know, those experiences will stand me in good stead for this fight. And with those experiences behind me, you know, the thought of going fighting Kell Brook in Sheffield certainly won't keep me up at night. No.
What do you think Kell Brook's going to bring to the fight, Matt? You know, how do you think he's going to, you know, what do you think his attributes, his best attributes are to the fight?
I think he's a very good fighter, you know. I'm not one of these fighters who trash talks and puts fighters down. I think he's a good all-round fighter, you know, he's very talented. And like you say, the people are raving about him at the minute. He's got the backing of Sky, he's got a good promotional team behind him. And, you know, people expect big things of him. But I just think this is coming at a good time for me. I feel like Kelly's is still getting better in his fights, where I think I'm coming to my peak now. You know, like I say, a lot of fights behind me, 30 years of age now. I feel I'm getting better in the gym. I'm enjoying my boxing more. And I'm relishing the chance, really. And, you know, Kell brings a lot to the table, but so do I. And it's a fight going to full of confidence. Yeah, and how long will your camp be for this fight, Matt? I've been in training 3 weeks now. So the fight is 7 weeks away now, so it'll be a 10-week training camp. So it's good. I've had plenty of notice for the fights. You know, the fight was signed a few weeks ago, so I can just concentrate and focus what I'm doing. And just concentrate on the job I've got to do, really.
And also, you was in a long camp up to Christmas, weren't you?
I was,
when you was going to fight the Moroccan kid, and then obviously that fell through for one reason or another. So you only kind of really had a rest over Christmas, really, didn't you?
That's right, and you know, I had a good time over Christmas. You know, sometimes as fighters, you know, you miss your Christmas. You know, sometimes you're fighting in January and February. So I was training leading up to Christmas. I had a good Christmas, but I had an idea this fight was coming about. So even though I had a few shandies and what have you, I didn't let myself go too much. Like I said, I've not put much weight on. And I've been in training a good few weeks already, so I'm expecting to see the best performance of my career really on the 17th, and nothing less than that will be good enough, to be honest.
And no doubt you'll be taking a few from Hayton, Manchester up there, won't you, mate? I
have, yeah. Since there's a lot of excitement for this fight. You know, people have. It's been disputed for some time now who's 1 and 2 welterweights in the country, and very rarely do you get these top domestic matches. You know, people try and avoid each other's side, especially, you know, me and Keller in similar positions really. You know, we're both highly ranked by all the governing bodies, jockeying for a world title fight. So but you know, this fight was put to me. I've shown in the past, you know, you get some fighters who say I'll fight anyone anytime, any place, and as we know, Bobby, you know, that's not really the case. But
not the case, no.
I've always said I'm up for a challenge, you know, and I've proved that in my career so far, and I'm proving that again. And I'll go into this fight full of confidence and excited about it. And like I say, it's Sheffield's not far, you know, from Manchester. It's an hour's trip, so my phone's been ringing and the tickets are going really well. Good.
And a nice percentage for that as well, Matt. You might have to cut that out, lads. Right, okay then, Matt. Well, that's nice to know exactly what Matt's doing and what's going on, and he's going to stay with us now. And now we're going to move over to Mr. Hayton, and he's going to explain to us all about these injuries. It's like the bane of boxing, isn't it, Mike?
It is, yeah.
Hand injuries. You know, you get these so many times, isn't it, Matt, when kids are leading up to a fight and they're getting ready to fight, and then they knock their hand up or they hurt their hand, and in the professional game it's costing them money, isn't it?
Certainly is, and hopefully, you know, when someone was retired because they had bad hands, that's a thing of the past now. And as you can see from these anatomical models that we've got here, it's extremely complex really what goes on in the hand. Your basic skeleton is the bones, and you can see all these different bones of the hands. We put them over Matthew's hands. I checked his hands out earlier, and they look pretty good. So there's no business there for me. But anyway, you can always try. So
slipped a card in my pocket. So I didn't even ask for one.
So there we go. So these are the fingers, and they very rarely get injured in boxers. The main boxers' injury to the bones are across here, across the back. So if you just bring your wrist here forward, Matthew, thanks, across the back. What happens is, as the boxer's repeatedly punching, the wrist can buckle. Here's the wrist, and it's just basically where the fingers join onto the wrist there, and these, with time, just start to open up. As you see on this anatomical model, it just starts to open up.
And that's where the problem is.
And that's where the problem is. And the ligaments can give way, and patients and boxers can present that. My hand often buckles, that's what they say. They say it's right across here, and you can see this sort of bony growth that can form.
It's always raised up kind of thing.
Exactly, and that's sore. And you know, we were discussing earlier, how many times does a boxer punch during his training program? And you know, it's 2,500 in a 12.
I remember one time I did 12 rounds on the body belt with Gomez, and they counted out, and he threw 2,250 odd punches in 12 rounds just on the body belt. So imagine what you're doing day in, day out, you know what I mean? And
like you say, you mean you know, your hands weren't built for punching, and the wear and tear on your hands is unbelievable, and it still amazes me to this day. You know, I know people are busy now, and you know, lads have work, you know, outside of boxing, but you still see lads, and it frustrates me so much. They're whacking the bandages on, and you're looking at them the next minute, they're knocking 10 bows out of the bag, and I just think, just take that little bit of extra time, you know, to wrap your hands correctly, because as Bobby says, when it's your livelihood, you know, you pull out of your fight, it's costing you money.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah.
It is. So there's a number of things that we've tried to do really over the last few years, and we're about to publish it actually in the literature about our experiences really with looking after professional boxers' hands. So we're trying to stop this hand from buckling. So the first thing we do is a taping technique, and as you know, Bob is a master at tape. But if I just show you on Matthew, this is a really simple taping technique. What we're trying to do is stop these from buckling across here So you can take a strip across the back of the hand there, let it drop down in that first web space, and then bring it across the back. And you do that 2 or 3 times. These are not quite long enough. Across the back of the hand. And that sort of holds that in place to just make a fist now, just to stop that from buckling. So already that will feel good. So we put that down as a base layer. And then my hand therapist is getting pretty good at making these now. Many, many boxers like these who've got this particular problem. This is made out of thermoplastic. It's very, very light, as you can feel there, Bobby. And they come in all different thicknesses and strengths, but that's probably the standard one that we use. And this is to be used just in training. It's
light, that, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, it is very light, yeah.
That's to be used just in training. Obviously, you can't use that in a fight.
Why do you think they go mad if you use that in a fight?
So it tucks in nicely behind the knuckles. So we're discussing many boxers that I know use this in sparring, as long as you've got the agreement of the other person you're fighting, or hide it.
Yeah, because it don't go anywhere near
it doesn't go near the knuckles. It sits down. This was for me earlier, so it doesn't fit Matthew perfectly, but my hand therapist makes them so they're custom fit for you. And as I can see, once we've got that on, and then we take that over the top, make a fist now, it suddenly makes this very, very rigid, and that buckling of the wrist, how does that feel?
Yeah, it feels good. Like you say, you know, a lot of fighters, don't you see them padding the knuckles out here,
Yeah.
but in a lot of the cases, that where the actual damage is done is around here in the wrist,
Just
like you
across
say.
the back.
I think I still prefer the horseshoe in the end of the glove.
Yeah, that's that, yeah. Yeah.
So that's one thing that we can do, which is prevention. Sometimes if that doesn't help, we then go on to the next stage, which occasionally is a cortisone shot into the joint.
Yeah.
And usually I use an X-ray machine or an ultrasound machine just to make sure I get into the joint. But we don't like to repeat that too many times because, as you know, cortisone can weaken things and can weaken the ligaments and make things worse. If it carries on becoming a problem, despite splinting and taking care of things, we can do an operation. And the operation is basically to fuse this bone across here and this bone across here. It's usually the index and the middle finger that's affected, although I've got a couple of boxers all across the hand was affected, and when they punched, everything opened up. But usually it's just the index and the middle finger. And there's a variety of ways we can fuse that.
Fusing, you kind of glue them together.
We glue them together, but we take a bit of bone from the wrist bone here, make a little window, take some bone out, roughen up the surfaces of these two joints, pack in some new bone from here, and then put a screw or some wires across and hold that in place, usually for about 6 weeks until the bone's solidly united across. And then that stops it from buckling, stops it from opening. And it's amazing how, you know, I've personally done about 9 or 10 professional boxers who've all fortunately gone back to earning a living and are delighted with that as an operation. So that's one of the main things, how we can control this, which was previously a pretty devastating injury, really. I think if you hand...
You know, I mean, like you say, you get some kids who get to that point in their career, and you know, just to go back a little bit, for trainers as well.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that, you know, trainers are not on a lot of money in the beginning. And if, you know, I've done it a few times myself, you've trained a lad for 8 to 10 weeks, and he gets an hand injury. Nobody gets paid. The boxer don't get paid, and the trainer don't get paid.
Yeah.
So I suppose for boxers to take that little bit more time on their hands, and to be honest, Mike, since we've been working with you, Brian and all the lads in here, you know, they're forever moaning because there's not enough tape in the gym. They won't buy it, don't get me wrong, I've got to get it, you know what I mean? They're not that daft. But
hopefully this should reduce your requirement for the thick...
I think Jack had one, didn't he? Did you make...
There's been a number of the boxers who've used these that do like them, really.
Yeah.
So that's the main bone injury that boxers get. The second injury that usually is with the trailing hand. So that's that you know, in me would be with the right hand. The left hand, the jabbing hand, usually is more of a soft tissue injury affecting the tendons. So if we look on the back of my hand here, you can see that the tendons are nicely midline, and as I make a fist, they stay in the midline. Okay? And they're not flicking off to the side. If I show you now on this anatomical model, as you can see, this was my little boy. He ripped that off when he was 3. He's now a debt collector.
Oh, I don't need to have it amputated.
So if you just zoom in on this area here you can see the tendon going down the middle, and that's where it wants to be, protecting the underlying knuckle. And you can see here on either side, there's like a canvas that's holding it in place. And if you tear on either side of there, it's going to let that come free. And as you make a fist, it's going to flick over one side or the other. Now, some people's tendons do flick. Now, Matthew, I think one of yours flicks, but it's not abnormally so, but it was this one. It just moves ever so slightly, just nice and slowly. They're actually pretty straight there. There, do you see it just move ever so slightly? Straighten out and back again. Now, that's within normal limits, so I'm not worried about that at all. What I am worried about is when that flicks down into that valley on one side or the other, and that would then expose the knuckle. And so as you then punch, you're going to get this dreadful, dreadful pain. And that, again, was often a career-ending injury. And I've done about 9 now, professional boxers. It's just a pretty simple surgery. We repair it back into place, and we protect them while it all heals. And they seem to have gone back pretty well. And that tends to be with the jabbing hand, just because it's just that repetitive motion, as opposed to the trailing hand, which is often just the bigger power punches, really.
Do you think, I mean, you know, in amateur boxing now, Mike, and I've always kind of said this, and I'm not having a go at amateur boxing in any way, shape or form, but you're only allowed to use, I think it's so many yards of bandage. You're not allowed to wrap your hands properly. Do you think this is where a lot of the injuries are beginning, starting off?
I think, Bobby, you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head. Mike Loosemore, who's the doctor for the British Olympic team, you know, Mike and I are doing a lot of research looking at boxers' hands and taping techniques. And Mike's doing a PhD, which is sort of a very, very senior degree qualification, looking specifically at boxers' injuries. And one of the main problems with boxers is their hands. And Mike, for a long time, has been discussing, you know, what is the optimal taping technique that we can do. I think I would advise any young boxer, make sure you go with a good trainer who knows how to wrap hands. But like you say, in the amateur game, you know, what is the purpose of limiting this amount of taping? It doesn't make sense. What we are working with is some pressure tape. So you can get photographic film. We've draped this over the knuckles of boxers, and we've then allowed them to start punching. And we can then look at where the pressure points are in the boxer's hands. And hopefully, using that and using taping techniques, we're going to try and come up with sort of a great day-to-day wrap or day-to-day taping technique. It's going to be affordable, but also protective for boxers.
So they'll be able to use that as amateurs as well?
I would hope so, yeah.
I think that's a good point, what Bobby made there. And to be honest, I'd never really thought about it, to be honest, because like you say, there's a limit in the amateur game. And to have extra bandage or padding on your hand certainly gives you no advantage. If anything, it makes the blow softer.
Yeah, it softens the blow, and that's what they're on about in the amateurs, aren't they?
And I think you generally find, you know, with my experience anyway, lads that struggle with the hands, it's a lot ongoing thing, you know, it starts early and it continues, whereas you get other lads, you know, where they don't seem to have any problems with the hands.
You get, I mean, you'll find it with the heavy-handed kids, you know, the kids that hit that a little bit harder, you'll find them the ones that are getting the injuries, aren't they? You know, when they're normally the bigger lads, you know, a lot of the time, you know, like getting through the middleweights and the super middleweights. And that's been the problem with them in the amateurs. Do you know, amateur shows, you can be using gloves that have been used 20, 30 times, can't you? You know, because the amateurs, you know, before there was any money in the sport, the gloves was just had to get used and used again. So you'd go to an amateur show and there'd be a big bag of gloves and they'd give you the gloves. And a lot of the time the padding was gone anyway. And then you've got no padding, no hand wraps at all, hardly. So that's straight away a recipe for disaster, isn't it? So to save all these later on injuries, something needs to be done at that grassroots level, really, doesn't it?
I think it's a really good point that you make there, Bob.
You know what I mean? It needs to be sorted out down there, doesn't it?
And as you know, but even, you know, which seems to, even when you first turn professional, you know, your first few fights before, you know, at championship level, obviously you've got to wear new gloves. But I remember, you know, when I was starting out early on as a pro, some of the gloves were terrible. They were soaking wet, covered in blood, snot, everything like that. The padding's gone. And he thought, Jesus Christ, I thought I was a professional here.
Well, I remember Jack Armfield, he went to Mike and he boxed a kid called, what are they called? I can't think of his name. But these gloves, he got these gloves at this show this night, and I went, they're no good, Jack. And he went, oh, they'll be all right, they'll be all right. You know what they like? You know, they just want to get in and fight, don't they? Alex Spitcoy was called the kid. So at the end of the first round, he's come back, he went, my hand's gone. His right hand had gone. So I said, right, you're going to just have to use your left hand now. You know, you're just going to have to box him. You're better boxing than this kid, you're going to be okay. Lo and behold, he comes back after the second round, his left hand's gone. And both his hands was gone.
Yeah.
And he had to go out. It was only a 4-rounder. You know what I mean? And he had to go out and box the last 2 rounds with both his hands was gone.
Yeah.
And I think he came to you, didn't he, Mike? And both his hands was badly damaged. And that was because of, I again blame myself. I should have overruled him and gone, listen, change the gloves. You know what I mean? But
it's an interesting point you say that about, you know, being given the gloves on the night, particularly for, you know, for title fights. And when boxers fight overseas, in America, there's so many different commissions. And each commission has its own tape and own wrap. And I tell any boxer that's fighting in the US, you know, 6, 8, 10 weeks before the fight, you know, someone from your camp should be on the phone, exactly what taping can we use. You don't want to turn up the day before at the rules meeting or 2 days before to be told this is what how you're taping your hands, because it might not be the way you are used to doing it. And as a boxer, you know, you're in that zone, you want nothing to be changed. Everything needs to be absolutely calm for you. And the last thing you want, if you've got a slightly suspect hand, is to suddenly be told, actually, the way you've been doing it for the last 12 weeks is not going to work today. We're totally changing it.
I mean,
so find that out early.
In these small hall shows, the whippy just comes to you and gives you the gloves. It's kind of not like, you know, a world title fight, you have a rules meeting, the gloves are picked, you know, you pick your gloves, you sign them, you know, for your fighter. But in these small hall shows, it's a conveyor belt. He's taking gloves off one kid, like Matt just said, they soak him wet. You know, and he's passing them on to the next kid. And this is where it's happening, you know, the inside the gloves are all wet and your hands are slipping about inside the gloves. So, you know, it does really need sorting out early on, doesn't it? You know, it might even put you out of a job. You know, if nobody comes to you now, you might make something what works in the amateurs and no one comes to you, Mike, in the pro, you better retire.
But that's the other thing about, you know, a lot of boxers do come to me, and I'm at Wrightington Hospital, which is an NHS hospital, and by all means, any kid who's got a hand problem can write to their GP and request to come to us at Wrightington. We've got an open policy. We're a centre of excellence nationally, and every GP in the country can refer to us as long as the boxer themselves is persistent, because often you'll go to a generalist or someone who doesn't work with boxers or know what they and will just say, well, stop boxing. Well, if all you can do is box, it's very difficult to take that pill, really. So just persevere as a boxer and say, no, I do want to see someone who's got a special interest in this. And you know, if someone who does have an interest say, look, there's nothing we can do for you, well then so be it. But you know, just persevere that and make sure you get your hands looked after.
Right, well, you know, there you go. This is everything what we need to know now about hand injuries. So, you know, on Mike's advice, that all you lads out there that are just starting off and even professionals now, you need to be wrapping your hands properly. You know, you need to be getting them sorted out proper, don't you? Okay?
Great.
We'll go to some results now, Matt, over the boxing over the weekend. Did you get to see any?
I did, yeah. Obviously now we've training in fights, you know.
No going out.
No going out.
Saturday night, Saturday
fight night, can't wait.
Yeah, well, on the Box Nation show, top of the bill, we'll go straight to that, was Carl Frampton against Chris Hughes. He's got 11 wins, 7 inside the distance now, and he's defending his Commonwealth title. What do you think of him? I
really like Carl Frampton, you know, considering he's, like you say, he's only had 11 fights. You know, he's had an extensive amateur career, and you know, he's a really good fighter. You know, even though he's quite short-armed, you know, he's got a good range of skills. He's patient. He's got the power. He's got the strength. And you know, obviously he needs to step up in class. You know, the level of opponents that's going to come with experience. But at the minute, I'm really liking what I'm seeing, and the sky's the limit. And you know what I thought, this fight, he really took his time a lot more, didn't he? And he wasn't just headhunting normally. He's kind of, you know, he's been looking for that one big shot, hasn't he? And this time he was throwing more shots to the body, wasn't he? You know, he was kind of easing his way into the fight, wasn't he? Yeah, like I say, like he picked his shots well. You know, he was landing shots, and when the time come to land that big shot, what a finish! You know, overhand, right hand. You know, as you say, it would have knocked an horse out that one. But you know what? He tried to get it off a couple of times before, didn't he? And he just, you know, the first one I thought, do you know what I mean? You thought, and then he tried it again and he missed, and then he got the last one, didn't he? Yeah, definitely. I mean, Chris Hughes' corner was in, and there was, you know. Yeah, the minute that shot landed, you know, there was no need to. Yeah, the fight was over. The fight was over as soon as it landed. Game over.
And then the chief support was for one of Brian's old belts for the English title. That was Eric Ochieng and Nick Quigley. This was just a war, wasn't it?
It was from start to finish. I mean, I don't know whether Out the Eagle had nicked his wallet beforehand or something like that. I mean, he absolutely flew at him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Like you say, as the old saying goes, they could have fought in a telephone box.
Yeah,
It was just...
he just tried to outwork him, didn't he?
Yeah.
And, it was a kind of a strange stoppage for me because, you know, he'd sat down at the end of the round and then he'd gone back out, and after one shot his dad had pulled him out, hadn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's his dad obviously knows him better than anyone really, and he'd put so much into the fight, and I think really, you know, if there was a game plan going into that fight, it didn't really show in the fight, and he was taking flush punches, so to be honest, I thought it was a good time to pull him out because he was obviously tiring. You know, you could tell when he was going back to the corner, his legs didn't quite have the strength, and he was catching him flush, so I've no doubt he could have lasted to the final bell, but I just couldn't see how he could win the fight, so I thought it was a good stoppage, really.
I always think it's a little bit hard if your dad's in the corner, isn't it? You know, if your dad to see you and, you know, not winning, you know, you're losing the fight and you're getting beat, it must be that little bit harder, mustn't it? You know, and your dad's your coach. Yeah,
definitely. It's, you know, there's been discussions about this in the past, you know, having family members in the corner, you know, obviously it has its pros, but also it has its, you know, any father, you know, he's not going to see the son taking too much punishment. But I must admit, I did think Quigley's dad, you know, despite him being his dad, I thought he timed the stoppage spot on, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, the burning question is, what about this Frampton and Scott Quigg? What do you think?
I think it'd be a great fight. I wouldn't like to pick a winner there.
No.
You know, I think maybe Scott Quigg, slight favourite, but I certainly wouldn't back either of them with any confidence. And this is a fight that's going to happen. It's another one of those things. You know, sometimes they leave fights, let fights build, and I certainly see the sense in that. But I've always been a believer, you know, let's see which one of these two guys is the best domestically. They're both young lads. You know, the British public want it now, so why not let the two lads fight now? You know, the winner can go on then to European world honours, and the whoever loses the fight can come back, you know, fight at the British title. I think sometimes you wait for a bus for it not to come. You know, this is a great fight now, so why not make it? I
think we're very lucky at the minute in Great Britain because, you know, a lot of the weights now, they're just boiling up nicely, aren't they? I mean, you know, obviously after Eric Ochieng won the other night, you know, Eddie Hearn was saying he'd like a fight with Brian Rose. Me and Brian was sat there watching it, and he can't believe it, Brian. No one's ever mentioned him now every time I like middleweight fights. I said to him, you've got that target on your back now, lad, you know what I mean? I said, you know, and there's that many out there now in the light middleweight division, like all the divisions. And we've got to that point in England, Great Britain, where the promoters are letting each other fight now, aren't they?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
because we've had it for such a long time where, you know, you could have gone to a boxing show and you can pick the 6 winners, can't you?
Yeah.
You can pick the 6 winners before the fight, even before the boxing starts, can't you? But now we're in that position where the promoters are letting the good kids fight each other, aren't they?
Absolutely, and like I think times are changing. Like you say, you used to go to shows and you could pick the winners on your programme, couldn't you? He's going to win this. I used to take fortunes off my mates, you know, coming to the boxing. Should have a tenner a fight. But no, it seems, and I think there's been a few big shows and the fights have disappointed. I think now people want to see the best fight in the best, and there's nothing better than a good domestic matchup. No. And like you say, two guys, you know, at the top domestically fighting each other. The winner can go on, and the loser can come again. You know, learn defeat. You know, the public's had a great fight. Everyone's seeing the fight, and you know they both learn from it and both go in separate directions and maybe meet again even further down the line. I
mean, you know, look in the bigger divisions. You know, like with Macklin and Darren Barker and you know, all what's going on in that. You know, I don't think we're going to be far away from Macklin if he wins against Martinez, coming back and fighting Martin Murray.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a right mixture there, haven't you? You've got Martin Murray, Darren Barker and Matthew Macklin. You know, that's a you know, we could have world title fights off 2 kids from Britain soon, couldn't we?
Like you're saying, it's British boxing's in a good state at the minute. You could go through every single weight division, and you know the top 5 or 6, all great. Like you said there, the middleweight division, the heavyweight division, like you've said there, Brian Rose now, light middleweight division, light middleweight, another good division. So like you said, I'm taking on Kell Brook, you know, two not just the best welterweights in Britain, in my opinion, 2 of the best welterweights in the world, but people like to see a good domestic clash. And I think you've got to give the people what they want to see.
Yeah. Do you find that the heavier weights that there is, Mike, that you get more problems with their hands?
Well, you know, it's a good point that, because the more power they're going to put in the punches, but the slower punches, and they're not punching quite as much really. So really in your division, sort of at 147, is when I see, you know, lots and lots of injuries, because you're combining that power with the speed as well. So you know, the lighter boxers have got less power into their punch. You know, don't get me wrong, they'll still knock me out, but they've got less power. The bigger hitters, it's just, you know, less punching. And so the 147, that weight category, I do tend to see the majority of my boxers.
So sometimes it's not the power, but sometimes the speed of the shot. What does it as well?
Well, no, I think it's the number of punches. So it's not just in the fight. It's you know, it's in that training camp beforehand. You know, how much are they actually doing? What's their activity that they're doing? Occasionally, boxers can just catch someone, you know, on the top of someone's head. You can just suddenly have an acute injury and either get a fracture or really just jar a joint, and then that just stirs it up. Usually, that does settle down. The ones that often come to surgery or come to, you know, measures that we've discussed earlier, are the injuries that just sort of chronically come on over. You know, that last fight, I remember towards the end of my camp, my hands were getting a bit sore, and then suddenly you start the first 2 weeks, you start to think, God, they're a bit achy again, and it just becomes this chronic thing, and it develops over a sort of a year, 18 months type period. And that's the time, really, get it checked out, really, before you start to do irreparable damage.
Like you say, Bobby, you'll know yourself, you know, it's such a hard sport, boxing. You're doing a lot of work, a lot of strain on your body. And it's very rare you go to a fight where you've had no injuries, your hands are, you know, you're 100%. You always have little injuries. And, you know, that's just part of boxing. But, you know, so many fighters go into the ring, as Bobby will tell you, with hand injuries, little tweaks here and there. And it does affect the performance. And, you know, it must be frustrating. Luckily, touch wood, I don't have too many problems with my hand. But like I say, a lot of boxers do. And whether the hands go in the fight or not, it does affect them in the fight. Yeah,
it kind of, I mean, and you'll get a lot of these kids, it's the living, so they won't say anything. I mean, me, I'm the first to pull my kids out. Any problems whatsoever, sniffles, colds, anything, injuries, I just pull them out. So I always kind of worry, are they not telling me things? Because, you know, they need to fight, you know, they need this, you know what I mean? They need this fight to pay the bills. So sometimes you'll get kids getting knocks and pains and they won't say anything. You know, Brian's done it with me, you know, he's got something wrong with him. Only because I give him a bit of stick, call him sick now and stuff like that. So he goes, I'm not telling you anything again, that's it, you know what I mean? But, you know, these kids, they've got to be honest, haven't they? You know, because is it an injury at first, is acute? And then if it's left, it becomes chronic.
That's right, yeah. Usually
I'm listening to you now, mate.
It's taken 10 years, but you're getting there. Okay, Bobby, so we've talked about the common boxing injuries that occur. The first one is the joints across the back loosening up with time and the hand buckling. And then we've talked about the tendons over the back flicking. But, you know, hands can break, and, you know, what you were asking me, what we should do in the case of an emergency, you know, what happens when something goes wrong? Well, the first thing you know when you've broken something, as I'm sure you're aware, is it's really sore, and often you can't move it. And that's the reason why a break or a fracture, and they're the same thing really, the two ends start clicking. So if you're making a fist, you might feel a deep-seated ache, a deep-seated clicking, and that's a sign that you might have a fracture. So, you know, in those situations, you'd want to get yourself off to hospital, get an X-ray, and hopefully get into a fracture clinic really get it sorted out.
Do you see that many, Mike? You know, do you actually see many breaks? You know,
There aren't really, not in the
actually in the fight. You know, or is it more or less tendon damage?
It's more commonly these chronic injuries. You know, the stretching out of those ligaments on the back of the hands, and the flicking of the tendons. But occasionally you do. You know, you'll catch someone on the top of a head and they'll just suddenly get this sharp, horrible pain, deep-seated nausea, clicking, and we do occasionally see fractures. And, you know, we've all heard about boxers breaking a hand during a fight and carrying on, and it just amazes me how they can do that.
It's like I said about Jack. I mean, he actually did carry on.
Yeah.
I mean, what causes? I know the game and they're brave and they want to carry on, but is it true that your body has a natural painkiller and stuff like that? Well, adrenaline is a painkiller.
I think once the adrenaline's pumping, you know, I think it can carry you through places that you've never been to before. You know, if you want it enough, you can last the rest of it. But I think there are certain things that you can't go through. Dislocated shoulders, obviously, you're going to be in absolute agony. You're not going to be able to compete because it's come out of joint. But a break in one of the small bones of the hand, the muscles go into spasm, it can splint it, and of course it really hurts when you punch, but that adrenaline can get you through things.
I remember like you say there, you're talking about adrenaline. I remember one of my fights, a defence of my European title. I fought a guy called Nazenko, a Russian, and the first round just come out sizing each other out, and it just caught me by surprise, leapt in, cracked me with a left hook, and the first time I've ever been down in my career, only ever been down once. But it actually broke my jaw, and I got up, and I didn't even realise it myself. Yep. And Bob was, looking at my face and stuff like that. I could feel the swelling, but as for actual, I cannot say I was in actual pain. Yep. I went 12 rounds, won the fight, and I'd say within about an hour after the fight, the pain started setting in then, and the pain was pretty severe really. But during the fight,
it's incredible, isn't it?
It's amazing how, like you say, the adrenaline just kicks in, and like you say, all these little hand injuries or nose injuries and something. It sounds mad sometimes when people say, "Oh, it must hurt," where it's not where actual pain. You tend to feel it after really.
Yeah. You know what, I might say it's the first time you've been on the floor. I've seen you on the floor a few times.
But that's on Saturday night when you used to have your pub, that Bobby. Come on.
So I never knew that you'd had a broken jaw.
Yeah.
Did you have to go and have it reset and all that? Or?
No, it was just, it had a small fracture, but it had not like come out of place or anything like that. So it was just basically rest really. But the next day I got up and it was absolutely out here. But like I say, I never actually felt it during the fight. But within very little time afterwards, like you say, you get out of the ring, and I just thought.
Is that kind of the only injury you've had, Matt? Really?
Yeah, like I say, touch wood. I don't suffer from hand injuries. I've had a broken nose. I'd say most boxers who've had a lot of fights have had that. But that's I don't tend to pick up many injuries, to be honest.
Yeah, good.
No, that's good. So about fractures, the ones that are undisplaced, and depending where the fracture is in the body, if it's undisplaced, meaning it's not moved anywhere, sometimes you can treat that without an operation, either in a cast, hold the two bones together. And usually bones will heal at about the 5 to 6 week mark. But if the bone has moved and shifted, or it's in a finger that needs to be moved, you might want to fix them. And you can use these little tiny fine wires, little tiny plates. But by doing operations, we're inducing more scarring and things. So we try and avoid operations if we absolutely can. But occasionally we do need to plate them or fix them. So the majority of things do heal, though. That is a good sign about bones.
You see these fighters that have got like these big calluses.
Yeah.
Do you take that off, Mike? Or do you?
Well, you can't really. If the ligaments are attached, so the calluses that you see are forming across the back of the hand here, and that's really a reaction, a stress reaction. As these are opening up, it's pulling, and the body reacts and starts to form more and more bone. Sometimes that can actually stiffen up and jam, which is great because that kind of does the fusion for them. It's like an auto fusion. But you can't just shave that off. If you shave that off, you shave the ligaments, and then everything will become really, really floppy, and then you really will start to buckle the hand, and then you would need a fusion. But you see this big bump, you think, God, it is almost tempting just to shave that off. But we don't really advise that really.
Because you see them, don't you? They've got like some boxers' hands are horrendous, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Like you say,
big lumps and horrible bumps on them, aren't they?
Yeah. But as I say, it always amazes me that some boxers become stiffeners and those just stiffen up, and I'll see somebody, and every year I'll see them at a show or an event, and I'll say, you know, how are your hands? And they'll say, well, you know, they're getting better. And I think that they are just gradually sort of jamming up. Other people's, it continues to be loose, and occasionally we do need to go on and do surgery for them.
Was you a lot of, when you went over to Freddie Roach's place, did you see a lot of hand injuries in America, the same as?
Well, I was just on holiday, and I was just sort of popping in and out, but there's a few guys came over to me, you know, showing me their hands. You know, as soon as there's a doctor in the, you know, it's like people are showing me their nose and their ears and all kinds of things. So there were a few hand injuries knocking around there, and I just advised them to go and see, you know, and I've got some good contacts in America that I could put them in touch with, so hopefully they should be getting looked after, really. Okay,
Mike, thanks very much. Right, we'll go to some of the fights that are coming up this weekend. We've got Scott Quigg this weekend fighting Jamie Arthur. Good fight, I think, Matt, do you?
I think so, yeah. Make Scott Quigg, you know, a strong favourite in that fight. Jamie Arthur has been a really good fighter, and one thing he certainly doesn't lack is his heart, but as we know in boxing, it's all about timing. And even though I think it'll be a difficult fight, I can't look past Scott in that fight, really.
Joe's gym's buzzing at the minute, innit? You know, like, they're all, you know, they're coming to the front, aren't they? You know, with Crawler and, you know, all the rest of the lads. They're all coming along nicely, aren't they now?
Yeah, and, you know, success breeds success in the gym, doesn't it? You know, and obviously Joe's got a busy gym. They're obviously getting great sparring. So, you know, we're lucky really in Manchester. There's so many good trainers. Like you've said, Joe Gallagher there, obviously yourself, Bob Shannon. You know, I'm missing people out. Oliver Harrison, another great trainer. And you know, we're lucky really to have so many great trainers in Manchester, and the Manchester scene has been buzzing for a lot of years now, and it looks as if it's coming through again now, isn't it?
I think your kid brought it to the front, didn't he? I mean, you know, the nights what we used to have up there at the MEN and stuff was, you know, there was nights to remember, weren't there?
Definitely. I mean, brilliant. You know, I remember them days, like you say, our kid was at the spearhead. You know, another of my favourite fighters, Michael Gomez. You know, probably one of my favourite fighters to watch, really. You know, he's been in some great fights, and like you say, Ricky had a wonderful career. The support and everything was success, and you know, he brought a lot of new fans to the sport, I think, and I think that's what encouraged a lot of lads to take up
it kind of lulled a bit, didn't it, when he retired? But I mean, I remember, you know, they'd be like Ricky, you, Macklin, Paul Smith, Steve Foster Jr., Anthony Farnell, all boxing at the MEN.
Yeah,
it was fantastic. All in our dressing room, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was, like I say, there was fantastic nights. You know, you could get in the MEN at 6 o'clock. Watch all, you know, all the local lads fighting, all good fighters. You know, you could be at the MEN from 6 o'clock to 11:30, 12 o'clock. You know, I've boxed a few of them. You know, late on at night. You know, just a handful of supporters there. The geezers there with the keys sweeping up at night. Come on, hurry up, like. But yeah, you know, good times in Manchester. Like I say, last few years, and there's still, you know. Again. Yeah,
it's coming back again, isn't it? You know what I mean? I mean, there was great nights, weren't there?
Absolutely.
And also coming up now, to get back to the fights what are coming up, we've got Tony Dodson against Orville Mackenzie. I mean, you can expect fireworks there, can't you?
Yeah, Tony Dodson's one of them guys who's never in a bad fight. You know, a real warrior. You know, he's had a really good career. You know, and some people will say, you know, maybe his best days are behind him now, but we'll see we'll see at the weekend.
But since he's moved up a weight, he seems to have like reignited the spark, doesn't he?
Yeah,
you know, and he's gonna have to watch himself with Orville, isn't he?
He's a dangerous fighter, you know. I remember when he fought Tony Bellew, he dropped Bellew quite heavily,
twice,
really, and we've all gone on to see what a good fighter Bellew is. So he's obviously a danger man. And again, it's a pick and fight, really, isn't it? You certainly wouldn't be putting your house on either man.
It's one of them where you can't blink in it, really, with this Orville Mackenzie. You know what I mean? He's a real murderous puncher, isn't he?
And he seems one of them fighters to me. You know, some nights, you know, you see him and he really looks in the mood. He comes out and goes for it, and then other times he doesn't seem to. He seems a different fighter. So yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it, and it's a tough fight to call.
Okay, Mike Hayton, I'd just like to thank you for coming in, mate. We'll have you in again, and you, Mr. Hatton.
Yeah,
we'll have you in
always,
again when you've got when you've got them belts round your waist. We'll have you back in. And sorry about the show. Sometimes it's been a little bit edgy tonight and stuff like that, but it's because of Barkley's fault. You know, he's let us down today. We've got no phone-ins. We've had to wing every single bit of it. I can't believe what he's done. And probably next time you see Barkley sat in here, I might have a bad injury, or he might have a cut eye, or a little lump on his lip or something like that, you know, because it's not very nice what he's done. So thanks very much, everybody, and I'll see you again soon.
Did you study Carl much? You know, obviously you've seen Carl over the years anyway, because of the tournament. But did you actually kind of get any footage and study Carl for this fight?
Absolutely. You know, I'm the kind of fighter where, you know, obviously I've been boxing for over 15 years, so it doesn't take long to watch, you know, an opponent or watch a fighter and kind of see what I need to see. So what I tend to do is, you know, I get into training camp when I have nothing to do but train and rest. And I watch a lot of film early on. I watch different fights that the particular opponent has fought. And, you know, I kind of back away from it for a few weeks, and then I'll come back and kind of watch a few things. And, you know, my coach, Virgil, he's a little bit different. You know, he'll watch film at 2, 3 in the morning, you know, all types of times at night, all throughout camp. And but we did watch him together. We watched him by ourselves. And, you know, we knew Froch was tough. We knew that one of his biggest strengths was his competitiveness. And you know, ironically enough, that's one of my biggest strengths as well. Yeah. And because we saw that, we just prepared ourselves again for just a very physically tough fight. And that's why I was able to be on point come fight night.
Yeah. Did you expect more from Carl Froch, though?
Well, you know, I'm going to just say this. You know, he gave, I feel, the best he could. You know, I was in there with him, obviously. And, you know, I could hear him grunting with every punch he threw. He had bad intentions on the punches. And, you know, I never got the sense that he gave up. So I think on that night he put forth the best effort that he possibly could. I don't feel it was easy. I feel like, you know, it was a great overall victory, being that it was the finals and everything like that. But, you know, that being said, I still don't even think that the world nor Carl Froch has seen my best. So I take my hat off to him for the effort he put forth, but I know I have a lot better.
Okay. Talking about the Super 6 then, what was the hardest fight in the tournament for you?
Sakio Bika, hands down.
Right, okay, fair enough. He's a tough lad, innit? I remember him seeing him fight Joe Calzaghe, and he took him right to the wire. He's a tough kid, innit?
Yeah, he's very tough. He was the same in the Contender, wasn't he? Yeah. You know, that final of the Contender with Sakio Bika, I mean, it was ridiculous, wasn't it? I mean, he was both on the floor up and knocking each other down. When he fought Joe Calzaghe, he was training in my gym in Manchester. And I was watching him training, and you could see that it was just all business. You know, nothing else. He was just focused, and you know, you could actually see. You know, you could actually see in his eyes the desire that he wanted to beat Joe Calzaghe. And you know, he tried to hit Joe Calzaghe with everything but the kitchen sink, didn't he? You know, his elbows, and you know, you get everything off him, elbows and everything, don't you? Yeah.
Why was it a tough fight, Andre? Was it because he was strong, or, you know, slippery? What was it?
Well, you know, Sakio Bika is the kind of guy that when you sign to fight him, you know, as soon as you sign the contract, you know it's going to be a long night. You know, it's just the way it is. Some guys are just like that. And, you know, the fight was an ugly fight, and at the end of the day, I'm happy that, you know, I was able to show that I can win ugly. That's necessary sometimes, but just his awkwardness, the mindset that he comes into the ring with. I mean, he had nothing to lose, you know, nothing to lose and everything to gain. And it was, you know, the opposite for me. And just, you know, not only just his style, but just the fouls and the elbows, like you guys just mentioned, and, you know, some of the things that he tries to do. But even though it wasn't, you know, stylistically a pretty fight, those kind of fights are necessary sometimes to prove to yourself that you can get through something like that. But also, believe it or not, it helps hone your style. And as you guys see that, you know, the inside game for me is something that has been evolving over the years. And you know, being in there with a fighter like Sakio Bika just even helps the process that much more.
Yeah, of course.
You know what, Andre? His trainer was a fella called Mark Pitts, and it puts it in a nutshell how strong Sakio Bika is. He was training for a fight, and it was the day before the fight, and he jumped in the wrong end of the swimming pool in the hotel where he was, and he can't swim. And his trainer followed him in, and he was on the bottom of the pool. His trainer had to drag him out of the pool and kind of revive him. And the next night he went out and won.
Sounds like a right lunatic.
Wow.
Yeah, he was actually on the bottom of the pool. His trainer, Mark Pitts, told me he had to drag him out of the pool, revive him and get him going again. And the next night he went out and won. So that's the kind of bloke you're dealing with, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, that had to be a sight. A guy that big, you know, being dragged out of a pool like that.
Yeah.
That's something.
And why is he dived in then if he knows he can't swim?
He jumped in the wrong end. He thought it was the 3-foot end and he jumps in the 6-foot end.
Unbelievable.
I don't know, madness. Obviously, Andre, you know, going back to the tournament, you know, it was a successful tournament. It was a great tournament, actually. It was really exciting, you know. All the best meeting the best. Is it something that you'd like to see rolled out into other divisions?
I would. I mean, from a fan standpoint, and I am a fan of the sport, you know, I understand some of the frustration through some of the pullouts, some of the postponements, and the length of the actual tournament, you know. But I think all in all, I think Showtime, I think the promoters, as well as the fighters, show tremendous patience, show tremendous resolve to be able to bounce back when certain things, you know, took place in the tournament, such as, again, pullouts, postponements. And I think, you know, the replacements were the next best guys. So, you know, a lot of people were saying a lot of different things, and I think it was tremendous. I mean, you know, I don't think anything like that has ever been done. And when you are the trailblazer, you know, for something new, you're going to have hiccups. Things are going to happen. But again, as a whole, I think it started great. I think it ended great. And as a fan, I would love to see this in other weight classes. I really would.
Yeah, it was definitely a brilliant
Yeah,
tournament, wasn't it?
fantastic.
You know,
And for it to work in the end,
yeah.
you know, with all the problems that there was at times, it was, like you say, it was great resilience by the promoters and the television companies, wasn't it?
Yes.
Sorry, Andre. How frustrating was it for you guys, all, you know, when there was the pullouts and that? Was there at any point there where you thought it might not work?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, there were times where, you know, for example, when Kessler pulled out, I mean, that was, you know, or when Darrell pulled out. I mean, these things weren't expected. And, you know, there is a part of you that reads some of the press, and even, you know, just in your own mind, you feel like, man, is this ever going to end? And how is this going to look, you know, in our boxing history for something, you know, this big to get started and then it flopped? So there were plenty of times where I didn't think it was going to happen. But as soon as I started to think that way, you know, Showtime had come up with an answer. And, you know, I really appreciate that because, you know, Showtime and, again, the promoters, you know, they were the glue that kept this thing together. You know, them being able to work certain things out, stand down when they needed to stand down or agree when they needed to agree. I mean, that's why this thing, it was a collective effort. So, again, whenever I felt doubt and got to that point where I thought it was over, I'd get a phone call and say it's back on.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. So what's next then for Andre Ward? Who else would you like to meet in the division?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, that's what they're all asking you, innit? You must get tired of this question, yeah.
You know what? I talk to my team almost on a daily basis, and I'm bugging them and blowing their phones up, trying to get some clarity on what's next. And you know, honestly, it's just a lot of moving pieces right now.
Yeah.
You know, I think Bout's in the near future. That fight will happen and should happen. There's another champion out there, Robert Stieglitz, and you know, that's really my goal. I mean, my goal is to make history in this division, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there's ever been an undisputed champion in the 168-pound division, and there are 2 guys left that have the belt, so that's kind of where I'm setting my sights right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's talks as well of maybe Carl Froch meeting Bout as well soon. If that fight was to happen, how would you see that one finishing?
Well, again, it's tough to say, but if I had to choose right now, just based on being in there with Froch, I think that, and this isn't underestimating Bout in any way, I just feel like Froch has the ingredients mentally as well as, you know, physically with his style to potentially break Bout. I mean, of course, Bout is a champion. He's defended his belt, you know, several times. So he's going to be in the fight, and he's a live dog. Yeah. But I think down the stretch, you know, if Froch can start getting to him early and often, I think that he has a great opportunity to begin to break Bout down and eventually possibly stop him or make it really bad for him in the later round.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned then as well a little bit about, you know, you want to unify the division, but you know, once that's done, is you know, a move up to light heavyweight, is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If you know, I'm fortunate enough to unify this division. I mean, I think that's the natural step, you know, that we need to take. You know, I've always wanted to be a multi-divisional champion, and you know, if I'm able to win these next 2 belts, you know, I'll become a 4-time world champion at 168 pounds. And, you know, I think that would be the natural move up is to go up to light heavyweight.
Okay, yeah, of course, yeah. So when are you likely to be in action again then, Andre?
Well, right now, you know, my hand is still hurting. The cast is off, but it feels a lot better. And I think I have probably 2 to 3 more weeks before I could potentially hit something. And, you know, April would probably be a little bit too soon. Right. Early May, Floyd Mayweather has that date, May 5th. The next week, they're probably going to re-show his fight from the previous week. So I'm looking at the 3rd or 4th week in May, potentially in my hometown. But again, that's not anything concrete. But that's my focus right now is mid to late May. Okay,
brilliant. Just talking about other fighters as well. Outside your division, who do you follow in the boxing game?
Well, I pretty much follow everybody. I mean, again, I'm a student of the game, and I just love, you know, whether it's on a championship level or you know, a club level. I mean, I respect the fighters a great deal because, you know, I just understand. Obviously, I understand from an intimate standpoint what they go through, what they're going through, what's going through their minds, and you know, I sit at home and I watch as many fights as I can. I mean, you know, the gentleman that's on the broadcast on the interview with us now that fought, you know, the young man from here, America.
Brandon Rios, John Murray.
Brandon Rios. I mean, he put up a tremendous fight, and he fought through it, and you know, he was in the fight the whole time. So I watched that fight every round, and you know, I just support, you know, the sport of boxing as a whole, whether you're an American fighter, UK fighter, or someone else. You know, I try to just have a broad scope of the game at all times.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, brilliant. You know, you touched a little bit on it before then as well about Mayweather. You know, there's been news out again this week about Mayweather-Pacquiao. You know, they're looking at May 5th, hopefully, but Mayweather's come out and said that, you know, he doesn't think Pacquiao should get a 50-50 split. How do you see that, and do you think the fight will go ahead?
Well, you know, it's not really my business to say what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Because I'm not privy to, you know, what's going on behind the scenes and revenue splits and what's on the table. But, you know, I guess my assumption would be with a fight of this magnitude, you know, that I guess I would think that a 50-50 split would be just, you know, would be the norm. But both fighters are in a position where they call their own shots. And if one fighter chooses not to want to take a 50-50 split, whether it's right or wrong, that you know, that they have the right to do that. I mean, they've earned that right. As far as how the fight will go, it would be a very good fight, and I think obviously that's why the world wants to see it. And you know, of course, I'm a Floyd Mayweather fan, and I respect Manny, and he's a great champion. But I would have to go with my boy Floyd Mayweather Jr. Okay,
fair enough. Okay, the last question we've got for you tonight, Andre, is there anything that you'd like to say to the UK fans, because you know you are a popular fighter over here on these shows, so you know. A lot of people tuned in to watch the fight although it was against Froch. You know, he still had quite a bit of support as well. And a lot of people appreciated the win, really, you know, just because of the style that you won in. So is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Absolutely. You know, Andre Ward loves the UK. I love the fans. You know, I'm very, you know, before I turned professional, I got most of my fan mail from the UK. You guys are just, you know, some of the best fans in the world. And I love the way you support your own, but if for some reason your own doesn't win, you know, you always give the other guy his just due. And I think that's just a very classy act and a very classy thing to do. And, you know, my goal is to, you know, adopt the UK fans as my own as well, and continue to put on great fights, not just for Americans, but again, for the UK fans and the people where you guys are, and hopefully bring a fight to the UK against another UK fighter or just a fight in general, because I think the UK deserves it.
Yeah, it'd be great, yeah. Wonderful to see. Okay, brilliant. Andre, we're going to let you get going, mate. Like I say, we appreciate you taking the time out to do this interview with us today. And, you know, as the next fight gets a little bit nearer, hopefully we'll have you on the phone again.
I'm looking forward to it, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Andre.
Thanks, mate.
Take care, mate.
Bye, mate. Cheers.
Bye-bye.